what is Shakti? Well, I've got a beautiful wife, so I've got a Shakti on my side, right? This is one way of using the word Shakti. Or at the moment, there is a woman festival taking place, so it's a bunch of Shaktis united. Yeah. So this is the way that is often spoken about Shakti in modern spiritual circles, or more in particular tantric circles. But it's a neo-tantric approach to Shakti, because Shakti really doesn't equal woman. Shakti is essentially not even a female force, although it is very related and in a way it can be perceived female. But what is Shakti? It's really a very, very old term. It goes back thousands of years. Already in the Rig Veda, there was a mention of Shakti. The Rig Veda is the oldest of all Vedic scriptures, and arguably the oldest mystic scripture on planet Earth. Surely the oldest mystic scripture of the Vedic culture. So it dates back over 3,000 years, and already people were speaking of Shakti back then. But Shakti didn't have a face. Shakti also didn't have anything to do with woman. The literal meaning of Shakti, and the oldest meaning, is power or energy or energetic quality. In the Vedic context, Shakti means the attribute or the energetic attribute of the gods. It is the power of the gods. And it was only until the time of the Tantras, a bit over 1,000 years ago, that Shakti started to be personified and to actually get a face and stories. And later in the Puranas, that was many more stories of Shakti were told, and Shakti got many different names. So there are different qualities and aspects to Shakti, and I like to give you a traditional view and eventually also a practice, so that you can actually apply these teachings. So I will explain Shakti in 5 different ways. Shakti manifests in 5 main ways. Possibly you can come up with more, but there are 5 important aspects of Shakti. First of all, there is the cosmic aspect. Second, there is Shakti as a person, so the personified Shakti. Third, there is the psychic aspect. Fourth, there is the energetic aspect. And fifth, there is the processual aspect, or the process of awakening. So we'll cover all of these 5. Starting with the cosmic aspect, Shakti as the cosmos, Shakti as the universe, basically. In a way, Shakti really is everything. Shakti is energy, and we know that all is energy, all is vibration, as I covered in the first teaching episode, Nada Brahman. We know that everything is vibration. Even scientifically, that is approved. Everything is energy, everything is vibration. And so I think it's valid to say everything is Shakti. Shakti is that cosmic principle that is dynamism itself. It is the ever-changing dynamic force of the universe. And everything that comes in touch with Shakti is transformed. It's another way of saying everything is transforming all of the time. And Shakti is all of the time everywhere, active. Shakti is an active force. It's not something still. Like Shiva, we will cover that later in this video, or in this audio. Shiva is the stillness, but Shakti is the dynamism. So Shakti is the three main forces of the universe. Shakti is the creative force, is the force of sustenance, and the force of destruction or transformation. Every single process that we can possibly encounter is in one of these three phases, either a creative phase, a phase of sustenance, or a phase of destruction or transformation. And Shakti is all of that. So essentially, she is change, transition, impermanence. And because she is impermanence, Shakti is sometimes called the void or the great emptiness. We know Shakti as the void, for example, under the name Kali, the great void, the black one. But simultaneously, Shakti is everything that fills the void. Shakti is all the abundance of life. Shakti really is everything. So we can say Shakti is nothing and Shakti is everything. And that everything is vibrating. And in non-dual tantric terms, we can say Shakti is spanda. Spanda is the cosmic pulsation. It is expanding and contracting. And we find also this in all processes of life. In all aspects of life, we find there is a moment of expansion and a moment of contraction. Look at your own breath right now. Is there expansion or contraction? It's in movement, right? That is Shakti. Constant movement. Constant pulsation. Spanda. Constant vibration. So we can say Nada Brahman. If that doesn't ring a bell, just watch the previous teaching episode in which I speak about the cosmos as vibration. But the cosmos is also speech, but not speech in an ordinary way. A tantric term for this is paravak, or the supreme speech, or the supreme voice. And that is a voice that is not uttered like my voice right now. It is a voice that can be sensed if you become really silent and you listen carefully within. It is reached through intuition. And you might hear or you might feel a current, an underlying current of life that moves you in one direction or another. Sometimes you feel drawn to a place or to a certain decision in life, and you just feel, you feel that that's the way to go. Yeah, that might be Shakti moving you. Listening to Paravak, the supreme voice, is a great art. It's a spiritual art. So that is Shakti as a cosmic principle. Now, in this teaching, I like to speak about Shakti as Mother Goddess. As I explained, Shakti is not always Mother Goddess, but I want to bring in the value of perceiving Shakti as a person, perceiving Shakti as even a being with a body and a name and even a story. Why is it valuable? Now we have to speak about animism. What is animism? Animism is a very, very ancient, often indigenous approach to reality. Basically, all indigenous cultures have an animistic approach to life, which means they believe or they perceive that the whole of life and reality is spirited, we could say, or has a spirit, is alive. So there are no dead objects as science wants us to believe. According to animistic perspective, really everything is alive. And everything can speak to you. But in order for, let's say, a stone or a mountain to speak to you, you need to give it a face and you need to give it a voice through your imaginary faculty. Yeah, so in animism, the mind is not excluded. And I could as well say in Tantra, because in non-dual Tantra, the mind is not excluded. The aim is not to suppress the mind or to stop the thoughts even. It's rather noticing the mind as a divine force, the mind as an aspect of Shakti. And the mind has the quality to translate, for example, a mountain into a face and an actual being with a story and with a timbre in its voice and with a message and so on. So it allows us to speak to the whole of reality and not merely with human beings having a mental conversation from mind to mind. And I mean a superficial or on the surface mental conversation, but there is a deeper faculty of mind at work when we communicate with, let's say, a mountain or a tree. According to the animistic perspective, all elements of nature have a spirit. And there is another podcast called The Emerald from Joshua Schrey, which elaborates very much on that animistic perspective. It's an amazing podcast, which is one of the inspirational sources for my podcast, and definitely worth checking out. So animism is the perspective that everything is alive. And Tantra originally is very close to animism or it has a lot of animistic elements and even goes further than animism because Tantra doesn't recognize only natural elements and separate elements as personified beings, but also personifies existence itself, or the universe itself. The energetic, dynamic organism that is the universe is called Shakti. And so Tantra goes further than animism and also further than the view on Shakti from the Vedic times. It basically combines a shamanic and animistic perspective with the ancient Vedic perspective on Shakti and makes Shakti Mother Goddess itself, Mother Universe itself. And so the universe gets a female body, gets breasts, it gets a female goddess voice. And it's a way to connect. It's a way to speak to her. And that is the great value of animism. it allows us to directly connect with the divine life.
I am the world. I am all names. I am all faces. I am the fragrance you smell, the taste on your tongue, the colors you see, the touch on your skin, the music of wind in the tree. I am your body. I am your mind. I am all the sadness and joy you'll ever find. I am suffering and liberation. I am the prison and the open space. I moan in pleasure and pain, appear on every face.
Suddenly we have an object of devotion. That is the great value of having an altar and putting a statue of Mother Goddess on your altar. Or it could be anything else. Any object that isn't devotional, a reflection of your devotion, is valuable, because suddenly that object works as a doorway to the divine. It's a connector from the worldly life that we have as human beings here to the divine life that is incomprehensible. So that object of devotion, whether it's a stone or a statue or a flower or a feather or a candle or whatever, that object of devotion becomes our portal and we can speak to it. So often people ask, how can it be real? You know, there is no goddess. I don't see any face. I don't hear any voice. Yeah? But I believe this is the wrong question. What is more valuable is asking what works, what is really effective when it comes to our spiritual practice, what is really effective when it comes to opening up your energy, when it comes to realizing who you really are, what is really effective when it comes to becoming fully happy and free, right? which are some of the main goals of the spiritual path. What is really effective? And one of these things really is personifying a god or a goddess, in my opinion and in my experience. And as Joshua Schrey from the Emerald also emphasizes, is that all cultures and all spiritual tradition, without any exception from the past, are animistic by nature. So it is a view on reality that is very familiar to human beings, and only very, very recently, since science became to dominate our reality narrative. Only since science is there, did we abandon the animistic view on reality. So it might be worth giving it a try to actually give the universe a name. And you know, there are many names. Shakti is basically multitude itself. Shakti is the many. And she has many, many, many faces. And in a way, it all comes short to what it really is. If we try to pour Shakti into one image, in a way, it's all coming short. But on the other hand, if we really value that one image, and it might be an image or it might be the face of your loved one just in front of you, and recognizing this as the one divine force, then suddenly we are in front of the one. And suddenly you are always in front of the one. I am in front of the one right now, although you are many. But right now I'm speaking to you through this modern technological device. I'm speaking to the one and only divine force. And you are listening. We're having a divine interaction. So, there is a cosmic aspect to Shakti. There is a personified aspect to Shakti. Then third, there is a psychic aspect to Shakti. She manifests also as our thoughts and emotions. And actually in the non-dual tantric tradition, this is emphasized very much, that Shakti is your mind. Shakti is your emotions. When we meditate in a traditional tantric way, this is not at all about suppressing thoughts or finding the stop button somewhere within your mind. Not at all. It might happen spontaneously if you continue to practice for a longer period, but it's not the aim to find that button. It's rather the aim to recognize life as it really is, including the mind, and recognize also the mind as sacred, as Shakti, as a divine force. The mind and the emotions, even the darkest mind and emotions, are stemming from a divine source. That is the tantric perspective. So it's rather recognizing everything as divine. And of course there are surface thoughts or dark thoughts that we can recognize. But also there are deeper thought patterns articulated by Paravak, or the supreme goddess, the supreme voice. There are deeper thought patterns that we might access if we listen carefully. So Shakti is psychic, and Shakti is also energetic. And that is a very important aspect of Shakti. Shakti is the energy in a place, or Shakti Pitta. She is power places. She manifests in certain places more intensely, we could say, than in other places. Have you ever been to the sacred site of Benares or Kashi, Varanasi in India? That is such a place where there is a lot of Shakti. There's a lot of Shiva energy, a lot of Shiva Shakti. And traditionally, this term Shakti Pitta is used for especially power places for the goddess, in which there are temples or devotional practices in honor of a particular goddess, a particular phase of the one and only mother goddess. So there are these places, but there can be power places in every continent, and there are power places in every continent. I'm living in Belgium, and in Belgium there are a few ancient sacred sites, like there is Wallis, there are the dolmen, and you notice there is a stronger energy. Everything seems to shine more. Everything is a bit more harmonious than in other places, and every culture, every continent has their own power places. So Shakti is the energy within the greater body, but also within the individual body. Shakti is our personal energy, and in particular the Kundalini energy. When we perform spiritual practices, Kundalini might be waking up. And Kundalini is that force that often is depicted as a snake curled up down in Muladhara chakra, or the root chakra. Is that force that if it's woken up, it rises along the spine. It goes upward and pierces all of the chakras and goes along Sushumna Nadi, or the central channel, the most important and central of all energy channels. And eventually, like a fountain, goes out of the crown of your head. That is Kundalini. Now, few people know that traditionally there, of course, is mention of Kundalini as a rising force, but there's a strong emphasis in Tantra of Kundalini or Shakti coming down as well. And that is the fifth quality or aspect of manifested Shakti, is Shaktipat, as is the title of the third episode of the podcast, the descent of power, the descent of the goddess. Kundalini is not only rising, Kundalini is also coming down, and is constantly coming down. First we need to rise, first we need to get the overview, to go to the top of the mountain and to see things clearly as they are, and open up whatever serious obstacle is in the way for a clear vision. But once we are there on the top of the mountain, for the rest of our life we need to go down, 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 and integrate. And that is the true work. That is the true spiritual work, is the integration of an awakened consciousness. And that process is also Shakti, initiated by Shaktipat. And you know, this process isn't actually initiated by spiritual practice, although it may seem like that. But the saints or the visionaries of the non-dual tantric tradition had that very clearly. For example, Abhinavagupta, possibly the greatest tantric sage, he stated once that good works can't draw God's attention. So whatever you do, whatever spiritual practice, whatever how many NGOs you are supporting financially, or it doesn't really affect your awakening. It doesn't draw grace. And grace is another word for Shakti. So we can't control Shakti. We can't control that most ultimate form of Shakti, which is the process of fully waking up. We can't control it. But what happens is suddenly grace touches us. If the time is right, we suddenly wake up and start to realize reality and who we are and what is really important in life, and we become more conscious and we live more conscious. Yeah, and that simply happens. And from there, we will be drawn to spiritual practice. So it's Shakti that controls that. If there is one force that is able to control anything, then it's Shakti. The great turn of the tides. She's turning the tides. She's calling you now. So these are the 5 manifestations of Shakti. Now I have to speak a little bit about Shiva too, because very often we hear this term Shakti next to the term Shiva. So I will just give a short reference to our male aspect too. Shiva is often seen as consciousness itself, or another word for it is the light, or prakasha. And Shakti, on the other hand, is seen as the reflection of that light, very much like the sun and the moon that reflects the light of the sun. So Shiva being like the sun, Shakti being like the moon. So that is traditionally called prakasha, the light, and vimarsha, the reflective power. It is also, that reflective power is also the ability to self-inquire, to look back at the source, and that is Shakti, while Shiva is shining himself or itself. Shakti is inquiring into the source of that shining. But in the non-dual tantric tradition, there is a strong emphasis on the actual unity of Shiva and Shakti. It only appears to be two. What makes it two is our own thinking. So in reality, there is no division. There is light and the reflective power, and it's all really one. But our mind likes to distinguish this from that, and it has its value. But ultimately, it's really all one. Now I'm gonna conclude this teaching by offering you a practice, and that is a mantra practice. A mantra, obviously, for Mother Goddess. It might be necessary to tell you that if you haven't been initiated into mantra before in a way that is personal, like live, not through video or audio, if you haven't had that initiation, you might notice that the mantra is not so effective, or maybe not effective at all. For some people it really is, even without an initiation. But for most people, the initiation is a great amplification of the power of the mantra practice. So that being said, I'm gonna give you the mantra anyway, and you connect with it in your own way. So either you practice it silently within your own mind as mantra japa, or you practice it out loud as mantra japa, so monotonously chanting it, or you practice it musically, integrated in a song, a melody, a bhajan. That's really up to you. This is a mantra for the form of Durga. There are many names, Kali, Durga, Lakshmi, Saraswati, and so on. But there is this one named Durga, that is the warrior goddess, the mother warrior goddess. She's both a devoted mother and a warrior goddess. And there is this mantra that I would suggest you to recite. And that mantra is Om Dum Durgaye Namaha. Om Dum Durgaye Namaha. Om Dum Durgaye Namaha. And when you recite this mantra, you can possibly visualize this beautiful face of the Mother Goddess, which is yet another way of connecting to her. And possibly you sit in front of your altar or a statue with the face of the Goddess. These are all reminders. And portals, remember, portals through which we connect with the realization that really everything is sacred. Really everything is already divine. Everything is the Goddess. All is Shakti.